And I would pass the floor to my colleague Jens Christensen, who will give you a brief update on where do we stand with multi-donor trust fund. And I have just the last very joyful information for all of us is that Minister Dijana Dragutinovic finally received the authorization of the government to sign the hybrid trust fund note, and hopefully as of Thursday this week we will go into the procedure of procurement of all necessary staff and opening up of all accounts, because the component of government executed multi-donor trust fund will be active hopefully as of Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd actually prepared to say a couple of introductory words about the survey and justice sector reform more generally, but briefly on the trust fund. Obviously, this signing of the grant agreement marks it's a milestone in the life of the trust fund, in the sense that we're changing it from being administered by the bank to being executed mostly by the Ministry of Justice. So we are moving, if you will, the modality of execution from donor to the government budget and to government execution, and we expect a lot out of that. And we hope that this will help build capacity in the Ministry of Justice to manage projects yourselves over time. And you might recall that the plan is to have 5 to 10 advisors within the Ministry of Justice to move forward the ambitious reform agenda going forward. On the other activities, I think we're close to having concluded our first work program in terms of providing more analytical input to the Ministry of Justice reform efforts. The Council of Europe presented the review of the 2006 reform strategy 1 or 2 months, 1 month ago, which was a first input. We are finalizing an analysis of financial management, expenditure management, and human resource management in the judiciary, and expect to circulate a draft in January. We are initiating an analysis of the criminal chain involving all the justice sector stakeholders, if you will. We had a meeting presenting that to all the stakeholders again 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then we have this perception survey, a survey of perceptions and experiences of the different stakeholders in the judiciary, which we will have presented in a couple of minutes. I think going forward next year, our assistance will be focused very much on 2 or 3 issues. One will be a significant access to justice component, made possible through the generous contribution of CETA. We will. This morning, I got the happy news that our consultant, 2-year consultant John Fornani, will join on January 1st. He's accepted our fee offer as a resident advisor here, and a substantial part of the recipient executed trust fund will be dedicated to this particular area under the trust fund too. Secondly, we're working on support to the strategy work. Firstly, through support to a more integrated approach to IT in the medium term, but also to the next phase of justice sector reform. And there are other contributions that we're looking into. So that's a brief update on the trust fund. We expect our draft annual report to be ready in due time in January, and to have maybe a wider distribution than usual of the activities in strategy planning. Next year we'll also, I think, importantly welcome the delegation and the Commission as a contributor to the trust fund, and that will significantly boost, if you will, the next phase of the life of the trust fund in relation to the EPA work, which is much appreciated and I think quite important. Just before we launch into the presentation, I would say that obviously there is a lot of criticism of judicial reform in Serbia, but there is also a lot of support, I think, as this meeting and the presence here witnesses. And I think it's important to remember, which we sometimes forget, that the task at hand is daunting, even in the best of settings, right? we're dealing with constitutional issues, core issues of the division of labor between parliament and government and the judiciary, who decides what and when. And that is a difficult process in most countries that has taken decades in many countries, and it is a difficult process Serbia is going through. I think, secondly, it's important to remember that remind ourselves that the judiciary is just a big institution. I do public sector reform in a lot of countries. A judiciary is more complex than others. You've got very strong professions, it's a pretty large budget, lots of people geographically dispersed. It is not an easy task at all. And finally, it's an area where people have very high stakes involved, and there's a lot of emotions and things involved. So it's not an easy task, and I think it's worth noticing amid the criticism, the progress reports, etc., that it is a very laudable effort that is being undertaken in a very difficult area in a very short period of time. And I think all partners here are here to support the efforts, also recognizing these challenges. I think this survey is intended to provide, together with the Council of Europe review, together with the expenditure analysis, together with the other analytical inputs, a sound basis for informing the next phase of justice reform, but also to be able to monitor results and performance over time. And as you know, and I've come to appreciate that performance surveys in the judiciary is a very challenged approach. There are very strong supporters, and there are people who have the opposite view of the value of surveys in the judiciary. And obviously, performance in the justice sector have many, many dimensions and can be measured in multiple ways. And perceptions and experiences of the different stakeholders are only a limited set of those different ways of measuring performance, but I think important measures. We shouldn't ignore application of European international standards, processing time, caseload, correct application of laws, etc. But performance and perceptions are important, I think, for the legitimacy of the judiciary. Having an idea of the legitimacy of any institution, especially the judiciary, is important in itself. And I would maintain that perceptions of service quality, access, fairness, etc. are subset of important dimensions among these other dimensions. So our hope is that the survey and the other inputs that are being provided can ease the task and inform the task of undertaking this difficult reform, and help provide a baseline for measuring results over time. Hopefully we can repeat this survey 5 years from now, 3 years from now, and have an idea of how the performance of the system is developing over time in this subset of the performance indicators. So we're looking forward to the presentation and the subsequent discussion, which hopefully will focus on not only the survey, but also how this community of international partners can contribute to the justice sector reform agenda going forward. Thank you.